Activate your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that's really flying under the radar, I think, repatriation of illegal aliens from the United States back to Africa. And this is all over Africa in different places. Could be the Congo, could be Nigeria, and, wherever, Zimbabwe and so on. So now, these aren't large numbers. We're talking about, so say 100 people at a time going back to these places. But what's interesting here is that the African governments, whether it be the government of Nigeria or wherever, none of these governments want their illegals back, their own citizens. This is their own citizens that have gone to the United States illegally and stayed in the United States illegally. They're being returned to their country of origin, where they are legal birthright citizens in those countries, but yet the African governments there and the politicians, they don't want these people back. Their own citizens, for goodness sakes, and they're all speaking out against it. Now, that the arguments against taking their own citizens back are really twofold. One is, well, they've left the country, without the proper legal processes, so we don't want them back. You can keep them, but we don't want them. But they're your own citizens. Yeah, well, if somebody leaves the country illegally, then we don't sort of count them as citizens anymore. We just arbitrarily decide they're not citizens. And so because they're stateless, that is, they have no country of origin, if you like, because we've declared them as non-citizens, because they're stateless, then you can't send them back to us because they don't exist as our citizens. So that's the semantics of administrative processes there, and the American government's not having any of that nonsense, and reasonably so. So that's the first ploy. Now, they can sort of do that with poor countries or countries that can't exercise any clout, but the US government can exercise clout. What was that you said? You don't want to take back your citizens? Okay, now let's have a look at your aid budget. Let's have a look at, okay, we'll slap tariffs on you and you'll stop getting aid as of tomorrow. Holy crap. Okay, we'll take them back. So in the next phase or the next step or the next maneuver, if you will, is that they're being repatriated disrespectfully. Well, what does that fucking mean? No one's really sure. It's a great one. You're showing disrespect. You're locking up our citizens. So suddenly they become citizens again when you want to play the disrespect card. You're disrespecting Nigerians or whatever country it's from. Well, what is this still? What is the... Well, you're just arresting them and putting them on a plane and sending them back. That's disrespectful. Why don't you give them first class tickets on a commercial flight and pay them lots of money? Maybe that way. No, instead you put them on a military flight, or they're on a flight, a commercial flight, but they're being handcuffed to the seat, this sort of thing. And that's disrespect. Well, no, it's not. They've committed crimes by entering the United States. This is immigration crimes. They've also committed additional crimes while being in the United States. They are criminals. And therefore, that's why they're being put in handcuffs. Now, if we ask them politely to go back to Nigeria, they won't. They'll just disappear into the crowd again, and we'll have a whole lot of trouble finding them and so on. So it doesn't matter. These people all have orders to be deported, so they're not complying with those orders. So we're putting them in handcuffs. That's how it works. This is nothing new. What about you guys? Don't you do the same thing? But it's only disrespectful if white people do it in white countries. Then it's disrespect. If we do it, then that's justified. If you do it, it's disrespect. So that's the next stage, disrespect. Now, the third thing is the victim card they play. Well, don't you know that these people who are working have entered the United States illegally, broken laws, they're working illegally, they're sending money back to Africa, again, whichever country it is, Nigeria, for example, they're sending money. And that's how their little children, their little baby children are going to school. Without that, the children couldn't go to school. There is no schooling or education for anyone in Nigeria unless it's from an illegal alien person in the United States who's working and sending money. Oh, stop. Does anyone believe that crap's like crap you're coming out? Hey, it plays well though. Picture of a little black girl with a pink thing, in pink clothing. There you go. That's it. There's the pathos. Gin up the violin music. Yeah. So now, the idea that only illegal black people working in the United States can have their children educated in Africa is beyond absurd. But they try that one as well. Don't you know that people are relying on this illegal money from the illegal alien doing illegal work? Don't you know? Don't you understand that? Don't you care about this little black girl dressed in pink? Well, hey, stop. So that's the next, and you can see the choreography and the central scripting by all these African countries, which clearly suggests, if not clearly states, that they're using the globalist propaganda machine to have a coordinated scripted narrative to try and make it difficult, or to create a propaganda barrage against the United States for repatriating these illegals back to their country of origin. And again, the numbers aren't huge. It's 100 here, 100 there, that sort of thing. But and I don't know how many black Africans, when I say black Africans, it's distinct from the North African coast with them more Arabic. I don't know how many black Africans are in the illegally are in the United States. I mean, the message is a few million, but I don't know. It could be around that or less or more. So they have to be, how do you separate, say, the black Africans from the local black population in the United States, or say blacks from the Caribbean, for example? How do you separate those, and to what extent would the numbers be accurate of the amount of illegals uniquely from sub-Saharan Africa? But I as the policies of the Trump administration ramp up, and we've got to assume that there are many millions clearly tens of millions of illegals working with illegal papers and forged papers and forged documents and illicitly acquired ID, such as driver's licenses, social security numbers, that sort of thing, and that they're going to be grabbed and they're going to have to self-deport or be deported. Some of them will probably want to be arrested and deported, because then they get a free transport back to the country of origin, whereas they may have to pay for it if they self-deport. But nonetheless, this is and there needs to be, I think, too, an overrider on this, that if we arrest you and deport you, then you can't reapply for any entry into the United States, asylum or anything else for 20 years or something that really is a huge disincentive. But nonetheless, now let's look at Africa's, as in the governments of Africa, let's look at their repatriation of illegals, the policies they have. Now, a lot of these African countries, as soon as they become even slightly more prosperous, for whatever the reason, it could be they're getting extra aid or anything, they've had some good harvests, the weather's been great, or whatever it is, then the word spreads around in sort of the forest, the jungle telegraph. The word spreads around to the neighboring African countries, some of which won't be doing as well. And then you'll get masses of people coming in to that place that is slightly more prosperous, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. This is what happened to South Africa, by the way. The South African black population was never large. It's only because South Africa was a successful, wealthy, white-run country, the richest country in Africa. It's only because of that the blacks came flooding in from all over Africa into South Africa, because, hey, let's go to that rich place and we'll get. So even in these shanty towns that the globalists and the propagandists use, look at those black people in shanty towns. Well, the white people live in these nice houses. Those were people coming from the mud huts, the grass huts of other African regions, and they were coming into South Africa, living a better standard of living than they had been from the places they came from. So to try and gin that up as evil white Nazi fascist oppression is just bullshit and a complete misrepresentation of the actuality. Nonetheless, so if Nigeria or whatever country is looking, doing okay or better than the other countries in the region, then the black people will flood into Nigeria, through the porous borders and arrive illegally. Now, once the things go off the boil a bit in Nigeria, or again, whatever country it is, once it goes off the boil, and then these people are now a huge inconvenience. Maybe they were handy to have around earlier on as super cheap labourers or something like that, but now we don't need them, or now they're of no benefit, or now they're a danger. We don't want all these young men milling around making trouble and so on, which they invariably do, particularly in Africa. So the government of Nigeria wants to expel these people. Now, there's no niceties or respect or anything, that's it. Guys, you're out of here. And at the point of a gun, they're expelled and kicked out quite brutally. Many die in the process. They don't want to go and find themselves, shot to pieces and this sort of thing. So whilst the government, these African governments, cry disrespect when a white country repatriates the illegals, they repatriate hundreds of millions of people are expelled all the time, and quite brutally so. But it's okay when we do it. It's just not right when a white country does it. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback Challenge. Thank you for listening.